This program has been brought to you by Exit Realty. Durango's our home. Let us help you find yours.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Roger Zanoretis with the La Plata Economic Development Alliance. Thanks for being with us again today. And if you want to learn more about starting, growing, or owning a business, the La Plata Economic Development Alliance is your resource here in La Plata County. Today, we've got Ellen Babers, a managing partner with P4 Consulting. Ellen, thanks for being on the show with us.
Thanks for having me here.
Great, and we're here today to talk about how to hire and grow the right manager for your company.
Right.
You know anything about that?
I know a few things.
So tell us a little about P4 Consulting.
We're a small consulting firm based here in Durango, Colorado, and we develop leaders and we help organizations build sustainable cultures.
How important is having a good manager to your business's success?
Well, I can tell you how bad it is to have a bad manager.
Tell me that. That'll work.
A good manager will give the owner the leeway to look at vision, look at strategy, look at the big picture, and actually grow the business. They take care of the actual running of the business, the implementation of the strategy, the tactics. And a bad manager will just take up all your time.
So basically, the manager is going to be doing the day-to-day stuff, or you're going to be doing the day-to-day stuff.
Right.
So that's the key to having a good manager in place.
Right.
So great. I'm guessing that when people hire a manager or promote them, there's some common mistakes that you see. What are some common mistakes people make, particularly when they're hiring their first managers or promoting their first manager?
Going on from what you just said, what happens a lot of times is that the owner isn't sure what they really want the manager to do. Mm-hmm. They're used to doing it all, and they don't really know how to break up the duties. And so they either have expectations that they don't say to the manager, or they're not clear in their own head of what they want the manager to do.
Is that the same when they're promoting somebody versus when they're hiring somebody from outside the company?
No, you know what? It can be, but generally the biggest mistake I see is that people don't actually interview the person they're hiring. So they may interview several candidates from externally, ask them all kinds of questions, really understand what the candidate is about, and actually explain what their business is about. But the person inside, they say, well, you know what we do around here. What do you think about being a manager? And that's not really fair to that manager or to the person. You need to interview them with the same scrutiny and ask them the same questions and tell them the same expectations as if they were an external candidate.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have done just what you said. Hey, you're good enough. Yeah, come on up.
Right, but the person you're hiring, maybe you've never had a manager before, or maybe you had a manager and they did it this way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the new person is going to do it that way. So you need to be explicit about what the needs are.
So what are some key traits that you should be looking for to hire or promote the right manager?
Yeah, traits. Now, traits are not skills. A lot of people get those two confused. And so they look at the skills needed, but they don't look at the traits.
So for us, skills versus traits, what are they?
Skills can be learned. They're, they might be, how do you make beer, or how do you serve a client, or how do you do accounting? They can be learned. Traits are more what our personality and our approach and our attitude are. It's a combination of our values. It's a combination of our beliefs. And we can change those two over time, but that takes a little bit more. So it's better to really look for and hire the traits that you want. Do you want a manager that's a risk taker or risk adverse? Do you want somebody that is going to be bold and forthright and speak up in meetings? Or do you want someone that holds their counsel a little bit and discusses it with you before they discuss it with a client or in front of other employees? They're right answers for every business, and they're different. The way you find them, though, is usually through scenario-based questions. You might realize some of it in a regular interview question, but through scenario-based questions, you'll find out a little bit more about how someone might react.
Both in terms of what they say and the words they use, correct?
Exactly. And another way that you find it is through references. A lot of people do just a cursory reference, but there's some questions that you can ask about traits that the person who's answering on the reference end doesn't feel like they're tattling or just promoting, but they can answer, well, this is how they approach things. And that'll give you a good idea of how the manager might react once they're in your business.
Great. So what are some things that you shouldn't expect somebody to know when they're being promoted or hired into a manager position?
They cannot read your mind. You cannot hire somebody who can read your mind. So you can't expect them to know, particularly when a business is hiring their first manager, if they're, again, not clear on what they want that manager to do, the manager's not going to be able to make it up either. The other thing they won't know is necessarily the culture that you want within your company. So culture is a way of saying the way we do things around here. So when a manager comes in, they're going to look at the employees, they're going to look at how people interact, how the actual work gets done, and what they see is what they get. It may or may not be the vision of the owner, and that may be why they're hiring the manager in, is to help alter or guide or just maintain that culture. But that discussion needs to be explicit.
Well, I can see the relationship between traits and culture. That you're looking for a certain level, certain traits based on what your culture is like. So I think that's one important thing then for an owner or an executive that's hiring that manager to think about is, what is the culture? How do we do things around here?
Right.
And even think about that possibly before you hire a manager.
Right.
So
Right.
interesting.
Would be.
Now, the other thing is you guys do training. P4 Consulting does training, and sometimes small businesses, for whatever reason, can't afford to send their employees to training. Maybe it's too much time commitment, too much budget commitment. What are some things they can do internally in order to help that manager grow into the position?
Well, the first part is don't just hire them and forget them. You know, and that happens. We pay a lot of attention in the first month, and then we feel like they're kind of comfortable, and we back off. But I know very few managers who truly have all of the skills and all of the knowledge of a job description. So hopefully the company had a job description to begin with. Know what skills the person needs more development in, or what knowledge the person needs more of, and intentionally guide them. You know, you're hiring a manager not because you have all the time in the world and you just want to sit by that manager and take them through everything and train them, but pick what they really need and look at those things first.
So, okay, so help them develop those skills is one of the things that you're going to have to work, or traits, or whatever it happens to be that they're a little bit weak on, and keep reviewing that job description as they go through the process too.
Right, and probably that job description is going to change as you know more what their strengths are, and you know the business owner can figure out what they can hand off, or what the person may actually even be better than they are.
Great. So, and one last thing, we've got the Alliance and P4, we've got a professional development program here in Durango. So if you are a company and you are thinking about having some managerial training, Ellen, can you tell them a little bit about this program?
Well, Roger, as you know, the name of the program is the Professional Development Program. It runs October through March, and we meet generally once a month for a full day. It's an experiential program, so we cover a lot of concepts for managers, but we also practice them in the class, and then in between the classes, people have time to go back and put it into practice at their work and see how it works. It's for managers who've been managing for at least 6 months, but they might have been managing for 20 years. It's not just for brand new managers. And it's for people who manage both people and projects.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Ellen. Again, I'm Roger with the Economic Development Alliance. Go to yeslpc.com if you want to learn more about hiring the right manager, watching this video again, or finding out other information for your business. Have a great day.